Okay, so I applied paint to the little lip on that side of the door and a bit around the edge of the other side as well. So now we're ready to cut the acetate. And I always like to start by making a paper template. So measure out the area and then cut a template, taking off about 1 millimetre from each measurement so that you've got a little bit again of a border around the edge of the template. And then we're going to cut that out. So I've got here a piece of 0.5 millimetre thick acetate, and I'm just going to use masking tape to stick my template to it. So this is a new piece, so I've got 2 nice straight edges there. So you want to line your template up if you can with 2 straight edges, but if not, just put it anywhere on your piece of acetate and then just stick it into place. Make sure that you're keeping it straight. Bit of tape there, and put a little bit at the bottom as well. Like that, and then you can just cut around the template just using normal scissors. And it's just such an easy way of doing it rather than trying to mark up the acetate. I used to sort of put little marks on it with my craft knife and then you can't see them and you end up cutting it wrong. So it's just a really nice easy way of doing it. And then you can get rid of the template. Remove the masking tape from your acetate. I'll take it off from the other side there. So to attach the acetate, I'm going to be using this Deluxe Materials Glue and Glaze, and this is specially for attaching acetate and plastics and things like that, as it doesn't fog the plastic. And you only need a really tiny amount of this as well. So I've just sort of had a go to make sure that the nozzle wasn't blocked there. Now there is a little blue tip that comes with this, but I can't find mine, so I'm just sort of applying it directly from the bottle. You're probably going to get more than you need that way, so if you wanted to just put a bit on a bit of card as we normally do and then take it from there, you can do that. But I'm just going to go around really lightly like that, and then I'm going to spread it out with my cocktail stick. And even what I've put on there is probably a little bit too much. You really don't need a lot of this. And if you do sort of happen to get any on your acetate, it sort of dries almost rubbery, so you can then just sort of pick it off with a cocktail stick. From that side, spread it over there. And I'm just putting it around the outside lip. You don't really need to put any on the panes. And then acetate picks up dust really easily, so just sort of rub it between your fingers before you apply it. Or if it was quite dusty, then you could use a sort of damp piece of kitchen towel or something and wipe that off. And then lay that into place. Go straight down like that. Give it a gentle press. Now we have one glazed half of the door. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry off for a moment, and then we'll sandwich the 2 doors together, and then we'll round off one long edge for our hinged side of the door. So to glue the 2 door sides together, I'm using my Gorilla wood glue, and I'm just sort of putting it more around the outside edge of the frame. I'm not getting it too close to the acetate. And I've got here my clamps, and we'll clamp this together. And once that's dry, we can do all that shaping and actually get it fitted. Like that. And then bring in the other side. Now I'm just going to check first, because if I had this the other way around, my slats didn't line up. Yeah, that's the right way. So glue them together, making sure you've got the nice flush edges. And stand it up like that again on your work surface to make sure you're getting those all lined up and flush. And then I'm going to go around with my smaller clamps. Start with one at each corner. Final one along the bottom there. Okay, so that can now be left to dry, and whilst that's drying I want to get back to my hearth. Okay, so I've got here on my tile some emulsion paints in pale pink, grey and a sort of beige or taupe colour, and I've been having a bit of a practice, and the first one didn't really work very well because my surface was completely dry, so the paint wasn't blending in. So what I've done is just done another coat of the base colour, the natural calico, on here, and what I'm going to do now is just stipple on some of my colours. So just pick a tiny bit up like that and just sort of dot it on over the damp surface. And what I'm doing is creating not so much a sort of marble effect, but just sort of a, I suppose, a sort of random sort of stone effect. I'll just dab some of that on. Then I'm not going to clean my brush, I'm just going to go into the next colour, dab a little bit of that on as well. And you want to work quite quickly here because you want your paint to be wet so that you can blend it in. And I've got sort of heavier spots there than others. And then I'll go into the beige. A bit more of that one. And I had this sort of idea from a panel that we've actually got behind one of the fireplaces in the dining room, and I'll show you that. Okay, so then you want to bring in a piece of kitchen towel, and I've scrumpled that up a bit, and then really just blend it all in. So just dab it all in. So I'm just sort of really lightly dabbing at the paint there. And then you can sort of get the idea whether you need to add in some more colour or not. I quite like that. I don't want anything too sort of harsh. I don't want it to stand out too much. This really is just a sort of really subtle effect. But, you know, you can do it brighter if you wish by using, if you had a sort of darker hearth, you could even sort of use blacks and golds and things like that. So have a look at it, and if you think you want a little bit more on there, then you can dab some more colour on and then just go over the same, do the same thing again, blend it all in. I'm going to put a little bit more of the pink in. You know, and if you make a mistake and you really don't like what you've done, you can just give it a gentle sand and then apply your base coat again and start again. In as well. And the kitchen towel is giving it a sort of textured effect as well. I quite like that. I'm going to sort of stop because I'll do what I normally do and just do too much, and it will just end up as a sort of mix of colours, but I really like that. So I'm going to let that dry now and return to the door. Okay, so what I want to do now is round over what will become the hinged edge of the door, and in my case that's this edge here. So I've already fitted the door back into the frame, and I just had to do a little bit of sanding at the top and bottom, and it is rather tight in there, but once I rounded this edge, as I said earlier, that will take off a little bit from the width as well, so that will then open and close nice and smoothly. So I'm going to turn my sandpaper that way, and I want to hold on to the edge of the door that I'm going to be rounding, because obviously this is still quite a fragile sort of structure at the moment. So hold it as low down as you can at a 45-degree angle, and then as you bring it towards you, bring it into an upright position. And what you can do when you're rounding over a long edge is actually use a bit of masking tape to stick your sandpaper to your work surface, and then use both hands like that to round it, and that will make it easier. So that's just starting to round over there, but I'm going to do a little bit more, and then the same amount of sweeps on the underside. Okay, so I'm happy now that I've got a nicely rounded door side there, and you can see there how much I've actually done. So it is really just to take away those sharp edges, and that will then help the door to open and close more smoothly, and that now fits nicely into the frame as well. So I've got a little bit of sort of give with the width as well, so that will open and close nicely. So once you've got it into position inside your frame, you want to come in with your dressmaking pin, and we're just going to pop a pin into each of the drilled holes actually in the frame and into the door. And what we're doing here is actually just making a mark for the pin hinge, so we're not trying to push the pin all the way into the bottom of the door. We just want to make a little mark in the top and bottom of the door of where we then want to drill our holes. One in there as well. Like that. And once you've got it to that stage, you can then actually try to open the door, and mine will open inwards and into the dining room. And that's actually a really nice action there, so I'm pleased with that. So then take the pins out, and if you pop the door out, you'll see that you've got your little holes in the top and bottom of where you then need to drill the hole. Now what I would normally do is fit the door into a desk vise to secure it while I drill the holes, but as Matt is here today and I've got a spare pair of hands, I'm going to ask him if he'll hold the door for me whilst I drill the holes. So Matt is very kindly supporting the door for me there at the top and bottom, and he's holding onto the frame and not touching the acetate. So I just reach through for my drill there. I've got in my drill my smaller bit again, which is my 0.8mm bit, or 1/32 of an inch, and I'm just going to drill straight down into that top hole. So hold your drill as upright as you can. I'm just making sure that I'm actually on camera there as well. And then drill down and keep it upright, because you don't want to risk tilting it and then breaking through your door frame. So you want to drill down by about 6mm, which is 1/4 of an inch. So I know when I sort of get to the end of the sort of patterned part of the drill, I don't think that's the right word, but you know, the marked part of the bit, that I'm about 1/4 of an inch down. Do you know what that bit's called? So pop a dressmaking pin into the top, put your thumb at the top of the door there, pull it out, and then you can see how far down you've gone, and I've got more than enough there. So then if we can just turn the door over, and same thing again. I see that I haven't got my glasses on. There's my hole. I'm just actually going to double check that I've done that pin mark in the right place, because when I was getting the paint out of the hole, I think I pushed it into the wrong hole, and that does seem quite way over. So let me just double check that, and then I'll be back with you. Yes, that was actually the right pin mark there, but it is quite close to the edge of the door, so I'm just going to be super careful drilling down there. And it's always best to check if you think something doesn't look quite right. Okay, so just checking again that I've gone down far enough. Yep, that's plenty. So now we can actually pin hinge our door. Thank you for your assistance, Matt. Okay, so what you want to do now is put the pin into each of the drilled holes in the actual door. And then I just like to press that down on my work surface just to make sure that it is all the way in. Same with that one. Press. And then you want to trim those, and I'm going to go to about 4mm long. And I haven't got a new pair of pliers yet, so I've only got one little area in there that still cuts. So let's see if I can find it. So trim them down. I'm going a little bit longer this time because obviously I've got a thicker frame here. Get rid of those ends. And then remove one of the pins, and because they're in different places I just want to double check which one goes where. So I think that was the top. I should have written on the door really. Let me just double check. I think that one goes in the bottom there. So insert the first pin, and that's in the bottom of the door there. It'll sit in there, and then get your door lined up in the frame, and then you can bring in your remaining pin. And this is the one that you may have trouble with. And just poke it in like that, and then you're just trying to find that drilled hole. And that was lucky because that went in the first time. Now don't push the pin all the way in, you just want to check that your door is opening nicely before you push the second pin all the way in. And I'm really pleased with that. Once you're happy with the action, you can push the pin in, but if it was sticking anywhere, you may need to remove the door altogether and do a little bit of sanding. Then try it again and sand more if you need to. Don't make the mistake of sanding too much off in one go, as you'll end up with gapping, and just make sure you don't push that pin in until you are entirely happy. So before I go and glue this into place, I just need to fit a door handle. So I'm using the same measurement for the external door handles as I am for the internal, and obviously that's because I've got one internal side of this door, and then that will be level with the dining room, the double dining room door handles. So I'm going to put a bit of glue on the first one. I'm using my Gorilla Wood glue for this. You can use any sort of wood glue or PVA. That's central on the actual frame as well. Give that a press. So I've got the other side on as well now, and I've just popped some clamps on there. I find that with these particular handles, they're not always flat, so the sort of plate part that goes against the frame isn't always flat. So sometimes you need to just press those into place so that they dry flat against the door frame. So I'll let those dry off, and then we can go and glue the door into place. Okay, so I've applied glue to the frame. I'll just put my finger in. And I had sort of dry fitted this, and I know it is a little bit tight, but I prefer that than having sort of too much gapping. So it's just a question now of manoeuvring that in It's this top corner inside that was a bit tight. So I'm just pressing that to place on the inside so that it's flush with this wall. And I know that there is some overhanging outside, as we spoke of earlier, and I'll go around with the stone coating, cover that up, and just make it look like a sort of internal lip on that frame. But actually, it's fitting quite nicely in here. So let me just open the door like that, and then I just want to get in there and pull that frame against the side. And you might have noticed that I actually left the masking tape on, and that just keeps it a little bit stronger. If it's not going to be seen, you might as well leave it on, and then when you're sort of manoeuvring it into place, it's not going to break at those joins. Okay, so I'm just going to cut now the surround for the internal side of the door, and then I think we're just about done for today. Okay, so I've cut the door surround there, and I'm just holding that into place with some masking tape. And when you cut this around, just remember that you're cutting it to fit around the outside edge of the sort of internal door frame. So that should cover the edges there. And do go and have a look at the video I did, or the tutorial I did rather, for the internal doors, where I go into a lot more detail. But I'm really pleased with how that looks. Still got a little bit of finishing off to do on the outside as well, and I may even put a bit of a surround along the bottom edge. Let me just go around there and show you what I mean. I've actually got some of this moulded strip, it's the same as this, with these sort of two scores in it, so I may just put a bit along the bottom edge there so that it's overlapping the bottom of the door frame. And then, like I say, I'll go around and touch up the visible door frame with the stone coating paint. But I do think that looks quite nice, and that really finishes that off now, because every time I walk past it and see that gaping hole, I've been thinking, I really should get that door made. So I just wanted to show you as well with the chimney breast in place and the hearth. And I think the chimney breast is in just about the right place. I obviously have to line it up with the little connections for the electric in there. And I think that's all looking really good so far. Now, I'm not going to do any more today, just because I really want to get this video edited and then uploaded to YouTube. So I'm going to leave it there for today, but I'll do everything that I've already shown you in other videos off camera. And then when I come back in the next episode, I'll show you what I've done. And then I want to move into the entrance hall, get the stringer made to go alongside the stairs there. That's like a bit of sort of skirting board that goes up at an angle. And then actually get the stairs and the understairs cupboard fitted into place. Then I can also fit the radiator cover into place and get all the skirting and all of that done. So it'd be really good to get these entrance halls finished off as well. Okay, so that's it for today, and I really hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. Now I'm going to carry on in the dining room and get the skirting and coving fitted. Now I'll do that off camera because I've done that in quite a few episodes now. And when we come back in episode 53, I want to make a start on the entrance hall and landing and get those stairs fitted into place. So I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.